Okay, I'd like to. Okay,
Ready to go?
I am. I'd like to call to order Council's committee meeting for November 11th, 2019, Services Committee meeting.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Services Committee meeting and call the Fire Marshal to the stand to present his present your report. Speak loud.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. Nice to see everybody. September was a another extremely busy month for the three fire companies. We ran a total of 113 fire calls. If you look at the very bottom of the incident report, we've added another category. It's called Quick Response Service, QRS, and that's a service that's being offered by Station 188, the Peebles Fire Department, where they're running a medical unit squad out of their station to assist the ambulance in their district. And you can see that they're pretty busy. They ran 40 calls, which added to the 113. But out of that, still we ran 73 fire calls, bringing us a year to date of 724. September was also another good month for the false fire alarm fines. We were able to collect $1,200 to put into the apparatus sinking fund, and brings us a year to date of $6,300 for replacement of our next fire apparatus. Just a couple dates to be aware of: the Appreciation Dinner Banquet, which is going to be Saturday, December 14th at the Chadwick, and you'll be receiving formal invites. So if you let me know if you're available. Also, a number of community outreach dates. You'll see in September we're able to do a lot of training at a number of the different facilities throughout the town. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you, Fire Marshal. At this time, I'd like to ask Council, do you have any questions for Fire Marshal staff on his report? Hearing none, are there any questions from the audience? Okay, next item on the agenda is review the budget program 411, fire protection and prevention.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you can all turn to the summary pages that we handed out for you. You'll see that we prepared a brief summary of the for the department, showing total budget for the department, as well as some of a edited version of the narrative chart that shows the breakdown between operating salaries and benefits. You'll see that for each of the departments that we go over this evening, and a reference to the pages in the larger budget document. There's one significant difference. Speaking with Fire Marshal Stack, we've been speaking about the need for additional personnel assistance in regard to fire code inspections and the other assorted work that Dan does. And what we've done, this could be accomplished in one of two ways. One, a part-time person more dedicated to the fire service, or as we've laid out here, a combination of making the part-time code officer, bringing him up to full-time, having him assist with Dan, as well as building inspection, and enhance the code property maintenance code enforcement as well. So there's one of two ways that this could be addressed with roughly equal cost. I think that the one way gives you a little bit more assistance in a variety of areas as opposed to one focused area. But either way would be meet the intent of Dan's needs. With the additional commercial development that's occurred at McCandless Crossing, in addition to the senior facilities that have been built recently, there's going to be that need for ongoing inspections with those sites, and the need for fire prevention education and assistance in various promotion and education aspects with those areas. So one way or the other, we wanted to try to address that.
So would this person be trained in both areas?
Yes.
If the person is covering two different?
Yeah, we would, in the case of moving the part-time code officer, one of the requirements would be that person, that staff member becomes certified in building inspection and fire codes, along with the property maintenance code that he's already familiar with. And we would try to have somebody, if we went the other route to part-time, that we would just have that person trained as broadly as possible.
And are we responsible for the training?
It would be my recommendation that we
Yeah, we would, okay.
we do that. And otherwise, that the budget is consistent with prior years, with just a 2% increase in the contribution to the volunteer fire departments, and normal increases for staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members on the budget presentation for fire safety? It's one of the most important things we do in the town. As Bob said, it's no secret that we've had significant commercial growth. I'd like to see a good, thorough set of goals and objectives and performance metrics for this new partial FTE, so that in next year's budget cycle, we can ensure that we are adequately staffing this very important need. I think this is a very efficient and good first step. Are there any comments or questions from the audience?
May I just ask one question? Dan, would a part-time person be sufficient?
I think for now, it would be suffice. I certainly, depending on how broad we want to deal with it, certainly it could expand quickly, yeah, right.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. At this time, then, I adjourn the services committee meeting.
Did we ask public comment on it?
We did.
Did we? Okay. Call to order the Public Works Committee meeting. Report from Mark Sabina.
Good evening. You have the activity report for October. Probably the only thing I would point out is that we did start leaf pickup October 21st. We've been hampered by rain, which pickup equipment doesn't work real well when there's a lot of water running down the road. So we're not as far along as we would like to be at this point, but we're keeping up as best as we can.
I know you've talked about that in the past, but how hard is it for you, since it's on video, extra when these people are putting their leaves out in the street and getting run over by the cars as they drive?
We have asked to try to re-educate everybody to put them on the edge of the street, not on the street. Certainly when they're out on the street and they get pounded down with as wet as it's been, makes it a lot more difficult to pick them up.
And how far can our machine pick up onto the grass?
We can reach back 6 to 8 feet.
6 to 8 feet. Okay.
Chief, not to put too fine a point on it, but I know in my neighborhood, we have sidewalks, and people have loads of leaves. And I think, for the most part, people who put them on the street are doing exactly that. They're not putting them on the green area between that and the sidewalk, nor on the sidewalk. But if they put those relatively large piles of leaves off the street, they'd be impeding the sidewalk. Is that okay?
I would sooner see them impede the sidewalk than traffic on the road.
Okay.
It's more of a safety issue when people don't want to drive through the piles. So they're riding down the middle of the street, which in some cases, there are so many leaves piled out on the road that it's really created issues, and it's done that for years. With these new machines, we are capable of, or we have the capability of reaching further back into the yards. So I'd much rather see a sidewalk blocked than block the street. And the leaves, and again, if they're not on the street and they're not being driven through, they're not gonna get pounded down into as much of a mulch as they are out on the street, which makes them easier to pick up when we do get there.
And I've also noticed that when they are pounded down, the machine cannot make one pass. It has to back up and go back and forth
Correct.
several times, which is double the time.
So you said 6 to 8 feet from the edge of the curb?
We can, if the guys ride, let's say with the wheels, the tires in the gutter line, they can reach back a good 6 feet, and depending on the terrain, if it's an uphill slope, they can reach back a little bit further. Downhill, it's a little bit less, but in average, they can reach back about 6 feet from the road.
Okay, thanks.
So, Mark, it seemed like the last couple of years that when we started our leaf pickup, that the leaves weren't down and then we had to extend our leaf pickup.
Correct.
Do you think do we need to reconsider our dates when we're starting? Do you think we're starting too soon? And then that way, instead of extending it more, with the gas and the
That,
employees
it
and everything?
actually changes every year. Depending on when we get the first hard frost, the leaves aren't gonna, there's not gonna be any urgency for the leaves to fall until we get a good hard frost and some wind after that, which starts to bring them down. This year, last year, we didn't have that hard frost until last week, I think we had one. And it varies from year to year. We've already had the bulk of the leaves down on the ground by the end of October so that it's made pickup a lot easier. We've had years when the bulk of the leaves haven't come down until around Thanksgiving, which at that point we have to extend because there's no way we can get them picked up in a few days.
Okay, do you have anything else to continue?
Now, if you have any other questions about the activity report, feel free to contact my office. And
We're gonna we're gonna wait for the public comment until after the budget report.
Always.
We'll do that in a minute. Review the budget programs for 412 ambulance.
The 412 ambulance continues in the packet that we provided you, and it's found on pages 35 and 36 of the main budget document. There's no real change in terms of how this budget for the year, other than adjustments for fuel costs and cost of materials. The town pays for the workers' compensation insurance for the clerical support, as well as providing grass cutting to the site, the property, and then we provide vehicle fuel and maintenance on the ambulances, subject to full reimbursement from the authority at our rates, correct?
Good. Now we can have public comment on agenda items.
Council comment first?
Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is the landscaping maintenance and the workers' compensation reimbursed as well, or is that a separate cost that the town bears?
We bear those costs.
Okay. And I make that point because there are other municipalities who have opted to provide financial donation to the ambulance authority on a per capita basis. Our town has not yet done that. I can tell you that the ambulance authority continues to run in the red, not because of their own ability, but because of the environment that they operate in. And in the future, that will need to be dealt with at some point. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other council?
Do we have any numbers on, the indirect contributions that we make?
The building is owned by the ambulance authority. We checked in on that, as well as the labor on the mechanics is charged on the bill.
Anyone else on council? Anyone from the audience?
Debbie Sagan, I just had a comment that, it's really kind of a question for Mark. Could the leaves be even in the yard if it was 6 to 8 feet? Like, you know, how you have the little green space and the sidewalk and then the yard, as long, I mean,
It's,
can the machine
I guess
pick up on
the
that?
safe way to answer
Yeah.
that is, if they don't go back beyond the sidewalk, we're gonna definitely be able to pick them up. If
Yeah.
they're back beyond the sidewalk, the further back they are, the more difficult it's gonna be
Okay.
to try to get them picked up.
So the sidewalk is kind of the optimal area.
Correct.
Thank you.
Because that's gonna be, you know, there's a 3-foot separation of grass. Sidewalks are typically 3 feet wide, so that's 6 feet.
Yeah, it's, thank you.
Any other comment from public? Hereby close the Public Works Committee meeting.
Call the order of the zoning committee meeting for November 11th, 2019. It's review budget programs 413 code enforcement and 414 planning and zoning.
Okay, 413 code enforcement can be found on pages 37 through 39 of the main budget document. Total code enforcement budget is $233,100 for the year, broken down as you see on the pie chart above between salaries, operating, and benefits. As indicated in the narrative, the current full-time building inspector and part-time code enforcement officer perform approximately 700 inspections a year, with some assistance still from Bruce as needed with the inspections. Those inspections are roughly split evenly between building inspection and property maintenance code inspection at this point. The way we have budgeted for this year assumes that promotion of a part-time code officer into the full-time role of the utility man, if you will, splitting their time between property maintenance code, building inspection, and fire codes. Otherwise, there's very little difference in this budget. We are proposing to purchase a new code books, though, as part of this budget. Any questions on 413?
Yeah, when you're saying we're gonna purchase the new code books, what year is that?
2015.
Oh, you guys don't have the 2015 books yet?
The state just adopted them relatively recently.
Right, I just
So
bought
we were
mine.
still back on 2009 code books. The
I
state,
can't believe I beat you.
congratulations. You were ahead of the ballgame.
Any other questions on 413? 414, planning and zoning. Again, this is largely based on current expenses. The only real change in this is that we have incorporated some additional salary in this line item, anticipating Mr. Betty's retirement and some overlap between Mr. Betty and whoever would come in after him. And the rest is based largely on past experience. Here. There's very, very little change otherwise.
Question? Our new tech committee has identified some areas where we need to upgrade and invest in technology. Have those costs been spread between the departments, or are they being carried in the administrative budget entirely?
Yeah, the majority is gonna fall into 401 administration.
Because I didn't see it here, but I
Yeah.
assume that we've got some computers here and some
Yeah, we-
software that we're upgrading.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by council? Any questions by the public? Hereby close the zoning committee meeting. Adjourn.
I call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting. First up, Chief's report.
Good evening, folks. October appears to be, we had a fair amount of training in October, and just the highlights, the majority of the police department participated in a low-light firearms training, which, for anyone who's not familiar, exposes the officers to what I would consider real-world. It's real-world practical training, puts the officers through like a real-life situational incidents. And like I said, the whole PD participated in that. We had 2 officers complete a training course. It was a week-long criminal investigations, kind of prepares them to be detectives, potentially. More in-depth investigations and such are offered in this week-long training. We also had 2 officers attend something called the LAP. It means Lethality Assessment Program. It's a domestic violence training. We've implemented it for a couple years now down there. I'm actually one of the people that implemented the LAP program. We trained a couple other officers in that this month. There was an officer that attended a week-long SWAT training as well. This will enable him to participate in the North Hills SRT team. I'm sure you folks are familiar. It's a SWAT team for the North Hills, basically. And I think we have 3 officers on that team now. A negotiator, a sniper, and just a general member. I guess that's about it for the training this month down there in the police department. Any other questions? Thank you to council for giving me the opportunity to serve the town.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up to the plate again.
Absolutely.
Next up, review request for multi-way stop signs at the intersections of SR 4070 Inglemoor Road and Inglemoor Heights Road and West Inglemoor Road and Highland Road.
And that, I'll just follow up on information that we provided for you on Friday. We received a letter on Friday from the Department of Transportation following up the request that we had made for them to conduct traffic counts at that intersection. We did provide accident reports for the last 3 years there as well after their review of the traffic reports. And the traffic count, they felt that a all-way stop at that intersection is warranted, and they've issued a permit for that. So upon action by the council to name that as an all-way stop, Public Works would place that 4th stop sign up there. There'll be a 30-day period where there's some flashing lights and things there to identify the changes, and hopefully that will create a safer intersection.
I agree. Any questions or comments from council?
It's a very dangerous intersection. I'm glad we're doing something there.
Yep. Okay. Any questions, comments from the public? Nope. Okay. This closes the committee, the Public Safety Committee.
Call to order the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. Review checklisting number 11 dated October 10th, 2019 through November 6th, 2019, totaling $795,199.04, as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and the town website. Are there any questions about the checklisting of bills? Huh?
Would it be possible for the council members to speak a little louder?
I'm so sorry. Yes, we will
Thank
speak. I'm sorry. Yes.
Me too?
Number 3, review the monthly financial summary and dashboard report.
Good evening. Y'all have the October dashboard report in front of you. You can see that revenues are performing at 89% of budget. Expenditures, while I still believe there are additional expenditures to come in for October, are well below budget from last year. I am happy to answer any questions related to this report.
Any questions from anyone in council?
I just want to make one quick comment. I think your development of this dashboard is really a very clear and concise way of understanding these numbers. It's congratulations for doing a good job on that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Review the application of Richard Frank Lipchat to acquire vacant lots on 7-1, is this mine still?
Yes.
Finance, okay. 713H93, adjacent to the property on Whitmore Road under the Allegheny County Vacant Property Recovery Program as adopted by the town.
Madam Chairman, this
Lots or lot?
lot,
Okay, here's the next thing.
we have reviewed this property of planning codes, taxes, safety. We've all reviewed this application, have no issues with it at this point, and we would recommend that it move forward for the sale of the property through the Allegheny County program.
Any questions from anyone on council? Okay. Review the application of Edward L. and Julie L. Flaherty to acquire vacant lots 946K 207 adjacent to the property on Fox Grove Lane under the Allegheny County Vacant Property Recovery Program as adopted by the county.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we have reviewed this application in planning codes, taxes, safety, and found no issues that would prohibit us from moving forward with the approval of this piece of property for transfer.
Madam President?
Yes?
Just to be clear, maybe for the audience's benefit, this program was put in place by Allegheny County to bring these vacant tax delinquent properties back onto the tax rolls in a productive way. They're largely overgrown, abandoned, and this is really a benefit to the neighborhoods and the
Yes.
community.
You've described it very well.
I'm a big supporter of it, I appreciate that.
Most of the people have been taking care of these lots for years anyway, just to make the neighborhood nice. So it's nice that they get to actually reap the benefit of that. Review a resolution recommendation for adoption at council's regular business meeting to amend the town's existing master fee resolution governing various town fees and charges.
A copy of that fee resolution is included. We've worked on a couple of other smaller adjustments, but please look at that. Let me know, or let Tricia know if there are any concerns with that. It's an ongoing review on our part to make sure that we're appropriately addressing the fees in an appropriate way.
Madam President, I did notice that percentage-wise, there were several significant increases, but it's my understanding again that these are fee-for-service, that these are not profit centers, that these are imposed to cover the cost of doing the business.
Correct.
We're simply making adjustments.
Yeah. We're trying our best to recover our expenses.
Thank you.
Notification that a public hearing on the town's proposed 2020 budget is scheduled for council's regular business meeting on an ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance number 1492, an ordinance setting the real estate tax rate for 2020 and other revenue sources and setting certain appropriations for the 2020 calendar year. Trish?
There, sorry. It's just a notification of the public hearing on the 25th. There is no change in the tax rate proposed for fiscal year 2020. If you have any questions related to the budget, we will be discussing it ongoing tonight as well as next week. And I am available for questions at any time, either from council or the public.
Questions?
It is on the website too, by the way.
Terrific. Any comments from council? Notification that a public hearing is scheduled for council's regular business meeting on an ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance 1493, an ordinance reappropriating certain amounts of money within the general fund 2019 budget.
This morning, we sent out a draft copy of this budget amendment. The municipal code requires management to notify council of any item that will exceed $5,000 or 10% of the set budget for each classification. I have summarized those items per the general fund and the capital improvements program funds. Most, if any, are listed here. If you would like to discuss this further, I'm again available for consultation on any questions you may have.
And this means that in some areas, we needed to move monies in from one area to another area, but if all the monies were available, they were just taken from areas where we over budgeted and didn't need the money, and so we were able to move them to areas where we had more expenses.
It was either reappropriations of existing items or additional revenues. As mentioned in the monthly staff report, we did receive additional revenues than expected, or than I anticipate expecting for earned income tax. We will cover these expenditures first with available expenditure budgets and then move on to any additional revenues that we receive.
Thank you. Review budget programs, 400, 401, 402, 403, 06, 09.
Okay. Under item 400, town council on pages 10 and 11 in the main budget document. This is consistent with prior years with just a couple of exceptions. We have budgeted funds for computers for the new council members, and as well as to fund the newly elected officials' attendance at the local government academy newly elected officials course. It takes place and is very helpful at getting those folks up to speed. And we've also added, if council wishes, to hold a retreat initially in the new year in order to do some strategic planning and set some goals and objectives for the coming 2-year period.
This would be for the entire council?
It'd be for the entire council.
Where would it be held?
That is at the discretion of the council.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on?
Councils, or the town has been sending newly elected officials to the newly elected class for many, many years. So that's that isn't new. We've done that for many years, and I think it gives them a good running start. Very helpful.
401, town administration. Again, very little change over prior years with one exception. As Tricia and I were working on the budget, we've had some shift in the personnel here, people going from full-time to part-time, needing to fill that work void in some ways. And originally, when we put this budget together, we had intended to request one other position focusing on purchasing and other special projects. Because of other changes in personnel, we're able to realign duties. So we're taking that position back out of the budget. We're recommending that come back out, and we just adjust workloads and salaries accordingly. It'll save in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $40,000 from this budget as it was originally presented. The other change is we've added some more of John Bajarski's time under administration, so that he technically falls under the manager's purview as the sustainability coordinator. Semantics perhaps, but we wanted to ensure that he actually had a direct link budgetarily to the manager's office. Otherwise,
There's the IT that we
Oh.
mentioned previously, Councilman Kirk, is in the office equipment line item. You'll see a considerable increase in that line item.
That's
Line item 260, yes.
Yes, sir.
That's because of the new computers and what have you?
It's the technology upgrades that are a necessity for staff and for the servers.
Okay.
One other question, Mr. Jim, this, the health insurance seemed to, is that a leftover maybe that didn't get taken out with the other staff changes you mentioned?
we had not removed that staff change, so that's,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, we will have those changes made for Okay. Under financial administration, there's very little difference other than some shift of percentages of Tricia's time, staff's time between finance, tax, and administration. Otherwise, that budget reflects consistent operation from last year or from this current year to the next.
So it's a little bit confusing, but a lot of people have jobs that overlap in different departments. So what they, instead of just putting that whole person in one department, when they work partially in another department, they kind of divide up their time. So as those jobs shift, then the pay, their salary, and their benefits will come out of like a different department. So some of those were realigned as jobs were kind of changed around a little bit. So that's some of the number shifting that you're seeing, a little more here, a little less there, is that some of that's kind of getting realigned.
Yeah, and the actual impact in the end, in the beginning of 2019, there was Tricia's position plus 3 full-time staff members in or associated with finance in some way or another. Now there'll be 2.5 plus Tricia. So but to Kim's point, some of Tricia's time goes to tax, depending on the amount of time she spends, and some to administration.
Yes.
.403 tax administration. As you know, the tax office collects real estate tax for the town and the school district, per capita tax for the school district, and business privilege tax for the town. and we recoup a portion of the staff's time or salaries from the school district. We're reimbursed for that amount of time that they take in doing the work on behalf of the school district. But otherwise, it's no changes in staffing and salaries, just a basic standard increase.
Some office equipment
Office
also
equipment,
too,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. 406, citizen information. This is a significant part of John Bajarski's time. And has to do with John's time spent handling the communications needs of the town, as well as his right to know work that seems to gain popularity. But there are no real differences year over year, other than a little bit of an increase in printing cost. It's just reflective of what we think that the cost will be moving forward.
Is this where we're gonna put our signs?
We have,
The entrance signs,
No, that's in,
Capitol?
Capital.
Okay, okay. I didn't
Yes,
see.
comment on that. It's the fourth paragraph. It speaks of gateway signs that were in previous budgets that weren't completed, the northern and southern borders. And it speaks to rather elaborate technology to tie message boards together in the town. I would just like to point out, and this will be discussed next week when we get into Capitol, but I would certainly, in addition to detention facility maintenance for stormwater and flooding, I would like to see some acknowledgement in terms of funding for outfalls and stream bank stabilization as well, which is a major problem. When we talk about environmental concerns in this town, I think two chief ones are air and water quality, and certainly air, since we don't have industrial sources of emissions, our leading emission is congestion from traffic, and that speaks to traffic signalization and infrastructure in that regards to reduce, mitigate that congestion, and then certainly water quality. And so I appreciate the effort being made in this budget to increase the funding for stormwater and flooding, but I think we're still, I think we can still do better, and we should choose carefully between things like signs and at least in the short term.
any other questions regarding citizen communication? 409, building and plant. You'll see that we have enhanced contracted services for IT. Again, knowing that we have to make a more concerted effort to improve our IT position. We made some just overall adjustments between ongoing expenses, and you'll see some other building expenses when we talk about capital moving forward next week. But we've been looking at things in terms of building security and just storage needs and how to best address those, and those you'll hear more about that next week.
Any questions on building and plant?
I see that the building grounds and maintenance repairs dropped for 2020.
that money was moved into CIP. We put about $200,000 into building improvements between the security. That number had about $100,000 in it for HVAC improvements, some of which were done this year, some of which have been expanded and will be in a larger project next year.
Okay.
We felt that they were better, it was more appropriate to put those in the capital program than it is in
Okay,
ongoing
thank you.
operational budget.
Any other comments from council? Any other comments? Just the fire, dinner. Is there anything else, seminars or conferences? I couldn't think of anything. No, none that I could think of. This is the time for public comment on all of these 9 items. Does anyone have any comments? Okay, come up to the.
Thank you for such a complete overview. And I wondered if it was a comment on the dashboard that you had brought up. I kind of looked over your shoulder, and if it is appropriate, I don't see it available to the public. I think that would be really a handy thing for people to understand a little bit more about expenditures. So I'd kindly ask if council would consider making
Well,
that
if it-
available.
If it wasn't in the
Okay.
packet, it was meant to be.
I couldn't
So-
see it
It's-
online,
it's
but
all
I'm
on-
just looking on my iPhone, so thank you if it is
Absolutely.
online. It is there, so I'll look for it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Just a quick question, and I may have missed this, as it's kind of, it is difficult to hear sometimes as you go through things, but I noticed on line 406, as I was glancing through the budget, under meetings, it seemed that there was quite a bit of increase from last year to this year. I think it went from $6,000 to $13,000, and just, out of curiosity. And the other line item was line 450, and I apologize, I'm not sure which section, I guess, they came from. The contract for IT, is that just, I'll let you explain the increases there.
I'm sorry, ma'am, the question was on 402 for seminars.
406,
406 is.
the line was 406. I'm
Oh.
not sure if what the category was, if that was the category. I just saw the line item.
IT services 403.
Thank you. That's meetings?
403 is tax collection, and then 450 is the IT services.
Yeah, this was below that. One of those. I just looked at the left to the line item.
If you want to see me after the meeting, I'm happy to go through it with you and address your questions.
Okay, if that's satisfactory for council too, they might want to take a look at that. And also 450 contract IT, and I'll try to find it again on my little budget here.
Contract IT did go up,
Mhm.
in part because it's anticipating some changes and some effort on our part to have an IT consultant available more often and take a larger role in the security aspects of the IT system here.
Understandable. It's moving so fast.
Yes.
Oh, and then, okay. No, that's not the one. 406. I'll try to find that and ask a little bit later.
Make your computer easier.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There's a lot of stuff that we went over. Alright, close the Finance and Personnel Committee.
I'd like to call to order the Recreation Committee. Number 2 is the update on the proposed fitness court project. We do have a sponsor, and an agreement is being worked on right at this point. Now, the agreement is for a large amount. We still can use some funding from smaller entities that would be willing to help us out with the remainder of the money. So if you know of anyone who might be interested in this, or who would like to help us, we would be most appreciative. Any comment from council?
Just, if I may add,
Sure.
Joanne, we would, and we're hoping, and John and I have discussed with the sponsor a mid-December announcement that we'll.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget to say that, yes, the announcement will be in December, so that it will be made public who our large sponsor is. Yep. Number 3, update regarding to the notorious North Hills event held by the Financial Development and Promotional Committee, Heritage Center, on October 17th, 2019 at the Rose Barn in North Park. We had 75 in attendance at that event. That brought in $1,875. And based on the information that we have a gross donation total of $2,248, with costs totaling $669.89. This results in a net of $1,587.11. And we are considering having another one of these, but we decided they were going to have one the following month, but then decided that that was a little too close, and so we're going to wait a few months before we get into having a second one. But it was a huge success. Number 4 is reviewing our budget, and Bob and Trish, I'm going to turn that over to you, please.
451 culture is funding for the Heritage Center, found on pages 75 through 77, your main budget. And again, that's in keeping with prior year expense. By and large, we are currently reviewing utility costs, trying to understand. They seem out of the norm.
Mhm.
We're trying to understand why that is, and we'll certainly make adjustments.
Are we bringing
With
someone in to discuss that
If-
from the
We'll
utility
bring in
companies?
whoever we need to
Okay.
in that regard. And then, the only other real changes in the meetings, seminars, and conferences. What did you-
The meetings, that was the assistance for the fundraising.
Oh, okay. Now, that's just, if there's expenses associated with some of the fundraising efforts. We bumped that up with the idea that they are hoping to have some more fundraising.
Right. We are hoping possibly to try to do, maybe not as large as this, but to do something each month, something special each month.
How important do you think that telephone is up there?
I've made,
That's one of
making
the
this
things that
point
we're
for
looking
months.
I mean, $2,200 a year for a telephone to the
Yeah, it's-
Heritage Center when everybody on the planet's got a cell phone?
Yeah, it seems that,
And
The-
none of it as well. But yes, we need to review all of the individual items for the utilities.
Any other questions? Okay.
The way the budget works with the Heritage Center fundraising is that half of that money goes into a capital improvement for the center, and the other half goes for expenses to run the center. So that's nice that they're generating some income.
community celebrations, this expense is primarily the Community Day celebration. Includes the personnel-related costs for public works, public safety, as well as operating expenses. You see some increase in the salary line, supplies. We bumped that up with the idea that this is the 20th anniversary, and if the town wanted to do something a little bit more special, we could do that. But that, again, will be up to you. If you wanna cut that back, we can do that, but we wanted to at least give the council that option to do something a little bit different, given the 20th anniversary of the event.
That concludes your report.
There's just the final slide, 2 slides here are the consolidated budget and then the budget process. Just to remind y'all, again, the next week we will review programs 410, 419, which is police, public works, and then transfers and fund balance, as well as revenues, the capital, the 5-year capital improvement program budget, and then the other remaining funds that are part of the consolidated budget for the town. November 25th, again, is the public hearing on the 2020 budget. December 9th will be the review of public comment, and then the 16th is when we will approve the 2020 budget.
Any other comment from council? Any public comment? This concludes the Recreation Committee.
Meeting adjourned?
Meeting adjourned.
It's very painful and I expected tonight to